Alright, welcome back, guys. See that I've got a couple viewers. Not many today, but that's okay. Thank you guys for tuning in. One cool thing about today, I've got two computers, which means now I can see the live chat. So if you have a question during the lecture, go ahead and post it because I'll be able to see it now. And there's a little bit of lag time between the slides and the video. So if I don't answer it right when you post it, there might be a little bit of a delay. But otherwise, we're going to go ahead and get started. A couple announcements before we begin. The first one is, you might have heard, the state has decided no VOC testing. Woo! Yay! That's exciting. So that takes a little pressure off of us. But again, we're going to continue forward talking about some of these concepts and move forward as we go. Okay? So if you have questions, like I said, post in live chat and we'll get going. Alright? Okay, so today we're going to talk about evolution, Darwin's theory of natural selection, chapter 15, section 1. So what this is talking about is not necessarily evolution. It's talking about his theory of natural selection, which is the driving force behind the theory of evolution. Okay? So our objectives today are to discuss the evidence that convinced even Darwin that species could change over time. So Darwin himself was actually not convinced that this was a practical thing, that this was going to happen. We're going to list the 4 principles of natural selection and show how natural selection could change a population. Main idea: Charles Darwin developed a theory of evolution based on natural selection. So again, without this theory of natural selection, then there would be no theory of evolution according to Darwin's findings. Okay, so to start this all off, I like to talk a little bit about the history of Darwin. Sometimes this helps to understand the person, the time frame, and what was going through their mind and all that good stuff. All right, so a little history for you. So prior to Darwin's work, the biblical interpretation was the accepted means of creation. So again, what that's saying is that species were created by God individually, that they did not evolve, they did not change over time. And that's absolutely okay. If you believe in that, that's more power to you, okay? I just hope that you believe in something, okay? So this is what was happening in Darwin's time. Many scientists were looked down upon for even mentioning the word evolution. It was not a solid theory at its time. And you're thinking, so why were scientists looked down? Was it because of the religious views? Some of which, yes, but not completely. It's because the theories and ideas that they came up with were so ridiculous and pretty much stupid that anyone that was not even a scientist could see through these and disprove them. Like, they were that outlandish and ridiculous. And if you're going to try to build a theory off this, it needs to be solid, because you're going to rival a lot of people's interpretation at the time of how species were here on Earth. So when you come up with something ridiculous, yeah, it discredits you and the theory itself. So it was that trendy word, evolution, evolution, evolution. It was on the tongues of everyone, and nobody wanted to hear it anymore. Kind of like coronavirus. We just are tired of hearing about it. Okay? So evolution, not a proper word, not a proper thing to get into. So the question is, Darwin. Okay? What did Darwin come up with? Well, it wasn't what Lamarckianism said. So this was proposed by Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. So it was dubbed Lamarckianism. And he actually had the #1 theory of how species changed over time with this concept. So he said it was an inheritance of acquired characteristics. So for examples, he threw this one out, which was giraffes stretching their necks to reach the food. These traits could be passed on to the next generation. So as you can see in the photo, you have the original short-necked ancestor, that it looked more probably like a horse with, spots. Cool. But over time, the leaves on the tree, they were much higher, and there were more giraffes, and there was more competition. So many of these giraffes had to stretch their neck, and as they stretched it, they got a little bit longer. Just not, a lot, just maybe a few centimeters or whatever. But that trait was passed on to their offspring, and as such, they got longer necks until what we see today. However, when you think about this is ridiculous. You're thinking, why? Well, think about it. Yes, you can lengthen your bones and arms if we really stretched on you every single day. That can be done. We watched that in the movie Gattaca. The guy had his bones stretched, doing that surgery procedure there. But that doesn't mean his offspring will have longer legs or longer arms. Right? The genes are already written in your DNA. You get what you get from your parents. So, just what it is. So, thinking that you can alter your body physically and that trait will be passed on to your offspring is quite ridiculous. You're thinking, why? Well, think about it. If you cut off your left arm and you married someone that had no left arm and you had children together, would you expect them to have no left arm or a shorter left arm? No, you wouldn't. So right there, that shoots holes right there in his theory that it's not solid. So I love my little meme down there at the bottom right there. It says, stretch, stretch, think about the children. Very important, and Lamarckian sometimes. So, yeah, there's that. So not a good idea. As you can see, these were the number one ideas. So what exactly is evolution? Let's define some things. It is hereditary changes in groups of organisms over time. So that means, again, genes that maybe have changed, but which have been inherited from their ancestors or parents over time. Evolution by natural selection is saying that these things slowly but surely change given enough time based upon environmental influences. Macroevolution versus microevolution. Macroevolution on big changes over time. So you're thinking like, how maybe we have fish evolved into amphibians. That's a big change. Or amphibians evolved into reptiles. That's a big change. Reptiles into mammals or the avian species of birds. Big changes. Those take millions of years in order for those small traits to be acquired or inherited and given the right conditions. Microevolution are small changes over time, and this can be as simple as from generation to generation, from parents to children. That could be a simple mutation to the DNA, so changing one nucleotide, even if it's to the non-coding DNA. If you change an adenine to a thymine, it's still a mutation. It's still a small change. It doesn't have great effects, but it is altering the DNA ever so slightly. And these mutations can sometimes spontaneously create new traits like blue eyes. Now, not necessarily does that make you any different. You're still the human species if you have blue eyes. But again, that small change can lead to bigger changes if you get enough of them over time, millions and millions of years. Alright, so hopefully we've identified some different concepts and ideas regarding that. So let's talk about the man himself, Charles Darwin. This guy. As you can see on the lower right there, there's a picture of him in his younger days and then his older days there. But he wrote a book called On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. In the top right, you can see the original work of his published book. Now, Charles Darwin, you have to go back in time and you have to think about this guy and what it was like, because I can't imagine that any kid wants to grow up and be like, I want to work on the theory of natural selection. Yeah, no kid ever says that. Okay, they want to play in dirt and throw rocks and stuff like that. So no, he didn't grow up wanting to come up with this theory of natural selection. A lot of people thought Charles Darwin didn't believe in God. That is actually a false myth there, because he actually did go to church regularly and did believe in God. He just had this idea that species could change over time. He wasn't trying to discredit the work of the Bible or any religion. He just saw what he saw, and he felt like he was compelled to write this book from what he saw, based upon the fossil evidence. So let's go back to his early days. So he's a young man. He is in school, as in like college. He's working, and he really likes to be outside. He likes to collect bugs and do all these cool things, but his dad has big aspirations for him. He wants him to be a doctor, just like him. Well, Darwin only had one problem with this whole, doctor thing, and that was, he would faint at the sight of blood. I don't know about you, but I don't want my doctor to work on my broken arm or leg, the bones sticking out, and then faint on me. Like, can somebody wake him up? No. So he wouldn't be the best doctor all around. And so his dad was like, all right, look, Darwin, if you can't be a doctor like me, you're going to be the next best prestigious thing in our society today. And you'll never guess what that was. He wanted him to join the clergy and become a priest. Think about that for a minute. Here's a man on the threshold of life, or goes down one path and becomes a priest and joins the clergy. The other, he writes the book called On the Origins of Species by Means of Natural Selection, which many people say rival that career path. You couldn't get a more ironic situation for an individual than him, which is pretty crazy. So he didn't want to do that either. He wanted to do stuff outside. A college professor, though, noticed his work, and one day that professor had a sea captain come to him and say, I need a companion for my voyage as I charter the coast of South America. Do you have anybody in mind? And he said, yes, I have this one individual named Charles Darwin. He's a great kid. He'll work hard for you. He's very studious. He can log stuff and do all that good stuff for you. He said, cool. So he offers the position to Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin runs home and says, Dad, family, I've got this awesome opportunity to go on this awesome voyage for a couple of years to South America. And his dad, what do you say? No, he ain't going. It took a couple of weeks before he just moped around. It was all sad. His family finally convinced his dad to let him go. And he did. Which again set everything in motion for him to become the person that he is today, or was. So he began this voyage in 1831 on a ship called the HMS Beagle. Yeah, kind of weird. HMS, by the way, stands for Her Majesty's Ship, in case people wanted to know that. The mission was to survey, again, the coast of South America. So you can see, as you look, he sailed from England, went all the way down around the coast, came back around. There's the Galapagos Islands, which we're going to be talking about. Came across the Pacific, went through Sydney, all the way through around Africa, back over to South America, and then back up to England. Whew, that was a long voyage. Began that in 1831. Ooh, yeah, that's a long time. So the voyage to the great unknown, the final frontier. So the Galapagos Islands, that's where his work really took off. Again, this is just on the west side of South America. So off the coast there, you see that Darwin found the islands, and then on the islands where the magic really started to happen. Darwin arrived in 1835. Again, he set sail in 1831. 4 years later, he made it to the Galapagos Islands. 4 years on a boat. Think about that. Yeah, 4 years of quarantine. That's what it was. So he took many notes and sketches of all the things that he saw. Collected insects, birds, everything. Now keep in mind, yes, he just can't keep all these live things on the boat. So yes, he collected specimens and then killed them, then preserved them so he could take them back. So, which is pretty cool. Here's a wonderful picture of the Galapagos Islands view of the terrain, and here are the many islands that they actually chartered and looked at and mapped for trading purposes. But on the book on the means of natural selection, he noted how similar organisms are on the island, but slightly different. So as you can see, these tortoises are a big example. As you look, you can see up here in the island here, the small Pinta Island, you got the Pinta Island tortoise, which has this intermediate shell. Then you have this Hood Island saddleback shell, which is down here, and the Isabella Island, which is down here. They all are tortoises. They're probably descended from a common ancestor, but on each island, they had their unique characteristics. And this is what he really, really noticed, that he could almost identify which island he was on. They could blindfold him, take him out to one of these islands, turn him loose, doesn't even have to look at the train. He just look at the species and tell you exactly what island he was on, because they were that unique. That's pretty impressive. But again, how are they all so different? What would have caused them to be different? He also noticed finches. So the finches were his kind of cornerstone. And later discovered they were all new undocumented species. So when he got back to England, he had all these birds and stuff laying out, and he said, well, I'll just take them up to the university in there and lay them out. And the professor comes in and goes, hey, cool, nice birds. But Darwin, you've got a gold find here. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, they're just finches. He said, no, Darwin, these are all new finches. Nobody's ever documented them. And you're thinking, okay, what to do? He found a couple new finches. This was the time frame when scientists had thought they had discovered everything. They knew everything. They discovered and documented every single species there was. And here Darwin rolls in with like 20 new birds that they've never even seen. So that's pretty spectacular achievement alone. So what was so unique about these birds? Right here. So as you can see in this photo, that as you look across, it has fruit eaters down here, and they have this parrot-like beak. So again, that's to once again munch on fruits and stuff like that. And you get the insect eaters, which you have the grasping bills, you have the probing bills. But all of these things are right here. Their bills of the birds are changing shape and sizes to get the food that they needed. So the resources dictated what they needed, okay, and what traits emerged. So if they had this big beak, but yet everything was, small little holes for probing, what happened to the big beak finches? They died out. They starved, or they tried to migrate to another island. But ultimately, the traits left behind were the ones that were successful. Those that were not successful, they were weeded out by natural selection. The environment dictated what could survive based upon the properties. You're thinking, well, what bird just decided I want a small beak? They didn't. They just had natural variations. So there's a group of finches that have clearly came from the mainland of South America, got blown over there to the Galapagos Islands. And they just had natural variations. Like some of us are tall, some of us are short, some of us are strong, some of us, are fast. Whatever it may be, these individual traits were among the birds too. And some of these birds had big beaks, some had small beaks. But over time, those that were the most successful with those beak sizes survived. And that's what you're seeing here. That's what led to this unique change in the birds. Okay? So, the understanding. He hypothesized that small gradual changes could result in big changes over time, if given the time frame and opportunity. Artificial selection is a process that he thought about. He said, well, we as humans, we do selective breeding processes for pigeons, which pigeons were a big thing back in the day. Dogs, all the dog breeds that we have, they're all the same species, but they have unique traits. And we selected those traits. Even plants, like corn. We selectively bred corn to make it what it is today. As I remember talking about back in the day, photosynthesis and how much corn has changed. Darwin speculated that given enough time, this could create a new species through the process naturally in nature, like an invisible hand guiding and moving species in a direction. And that's pretty cool when you think about it. That the environment is dictating how or what traits emerge. It's pretty neat. All right, I see that we've gotten to about 17 minutes, so we need to stop here. If you have any questions, go ahead and post in the chat, and I'll try to answer those. You guys have been a great audience so far. Hopefully you've been enjoying that time to wake up around 12:30. It's been nice, I'm sure. Catching up on some of that Skyrim, playing those video games. Avoiding the coronavirus as much as possible. So, any questions, just post them out there, and we'll get to them. Again, I thank you guys for tuning in. I know you guys got other things to do, and you could be doing other things that you might want, but you are taking initiative to better yourself, and that to me says a lot about you as individuals. So, very proud of you guys. All right. I don't see any questions in the live chat, so I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. And again, thank you guys for tuning in. I'll be back Thursday at around 2 o'clock again to continue some of this lecture about Darwin and his theory on natural selection. Okay? Have a great day, guys. We'll see you later.